Welcome to 3 shifts all churches need to increase online giving without hiring more staff. How to excite givers already sitting in your pews. Who is this for? Well, this is for pastors who know that many of their flock are not faithful givers, and they want their congregation to experience the joy of giving, and they want to increase the ministry within their churches. Chances are you've been disappointed in the giving of a certain percentage of your flock. You're not alone. Yeah, there are faithful givers in your pews, the sacrificial ones who give out of obedience and, get this, even joy. But we know not everybody who listens to the sermons, who read scriptures, give to their church, sometimes ever. Teaching on money, I run the same risk we all do. Speaking the truth of God's word, some will think we're just greedy or want more money, or money from their pocket. Your church members, even maybe you right now, you put up a quick wall when Christians discuss money and giving. There's been plenty before us who did not ask biblically, or they misused God's money. And that makes it harder for you and me to talk about the subjects of money and giving. I get it. But there are ways to biblically speak about the joys of giving. And let's face it, not everyone is in your church each Sunday. Church members spend more time online than in your pews. You can teach about giving till you're blue in the face, and sometimes they just don't hear. Well, I want to talk about giving your flock and the ways to bridge the gaps right now in this webinar. In the next 30 minutes, I want you to learn why members and attendees give or don't give online. I want you to discover methods to align your church staff to row to the same online goals. Learn what churches should be asking from online givers. Discover what nonprofits do that churches don't. And I want you to uncover giving blocks that your flock has with church generosity. My promise to you, well, I am going to teach you proven ways to increase online generosity of your flock without hiring more staff. Does this sound like you? Do you secretly wonder if your church members and attendees will ever become consistent givers to kingdom work? Do you really wonder if all the manpower and cost of your church, web, and communication teams are really focused correctly? Are you tired of being told we should do this or that, buy this, improve that, do more of that by your web staff? Do you sometimes feel like an imposter? Out of all the hats you wear, does the online strategy expert really fit? Do you feel more comfortable focusing on your role as pastor while leaving online efforts to others, or ignoring them altogether? The big question, do you wonder if your church could be doing more online to engage your members and attendees and produce excited givers to kingdom ministry? Once you make these 3 shifts, you will be on your way to gain confidence that your church staff is rowing to the same lighthouse, that you're eliminating curveball project requests and suggestions from your staff and church flock. And you're going to watch non-givers turn into consistent givers. You're going to walk into meetings knowing what to ask, to request, and to measure. And you're going to experience online giving increases from your church congregation. So who is Todd Turner? Before you listen to me, learn a little bit about me. I am a former executive vice president for Insight for Living with Chuck Swindoll. I'm a former elder and church leader. I've been blessed to study digital fundraising in multiple countries, languages, and cultures around the globe. I am passionate about sharing findings with Christian organizations and churches. Today, I want you to discover 3 shifts, 3 ideas that are really based on 3 areas: churches, organizations, and people. Let's start with the first truth. Churches don't understand digital giving. Churches don't understand digital giving. Numbers don't lie. Many of you listening may have churches that are booming and are seeing increased giving. To that I say, praise the Lord. Stats show that because in this COVID economy, the rich are getting richer and the givers are giving more, but the ratio of givers and non-givers are just not moving that much. The shift to online giving is really just moving from the offering plate to the website. As people automate their giving, it has helped with consistency of church giving. That part is true. But there's no real growth in online numbers or percentages. Sadly, non-givers take up a big percentage of the flock in churches. and the giving button. Most churches consider a web page that takes credit card gifts as their online giving strategy. It's just their online giving plate. Some of you listening pass a plate. Some of you have giving boxes. Most of you still have the same online giving software to replace whatever your in-person system is. Most of you put more effort into your service, worship, and in-person giving experience than you do online. That's 99% of you listening. Churches assume that a giving page that works is good enough. Did anything really change? During COVID, everyone was forced to catch up with the churches that were already working towards robust online ministries and community and streaming. We all took services online. We took our ministry online, but we didn't adapt to the online world our flock lives in. Online purchases and donations are a science, and churches are literally just putting up a giving page and calling it done. Sunday is always coming. Let me tell you a quick story. Church rhythm is built around Sunday and the church events and staff schedules. While working with churches, I've seen online giving to get the least amount of attention. Even after I worked with a church to create an email that raised over $20,000 from givers in their church who had never given before. The staff was excited when they heard the news, and then they quickly got back into their regular cadence. And calling the follow-up meeting was pushing rope uphill. It shouted to me that staffs are really good at what they do, ministering. They just don't spend time on efforts that, even though beneficial to the church and its members and would be wise to focus on, they just focus elsewhere. Church staffs are really not built for digital. And honestly, it's not their fault. At best, we're growing in our technical knowledge and in the software, and we've improved our lighting, our sound, video presentation. But these things are not leading to online giving. The stats prove this. There's still a lot of non-givers in your pews and on your website. I tell my clients something: don't let the accountants pick the web software. And for that matter, don't let your vendors either. Typically, if the church accounting team likes the way software captures and reports on donations and the members' information, they're happy. But I'm going to say it, accountants are horrible marketers. Although Jesus loves them, they should not be making the decision on websites and donation processes. More on this later, but it's a big travesty that church software and the donation pages that they promote may work well with the back ends and the church membership databases, but they do a horrible job interacting with your members and potential givers. I have spent decades A/B testing donation pages, seeing which ones work, which ones don't, which ones has better conversions. The top-selling church donor software is hurting churches and their ability to create online givers. Let me say this out loud. The Give button on your website is not the online solution for passing the plate. The whole church community has really yet to learn this fact. You're probably thinking, but I think our giving is actually up since COVID. Well, actually, the giving moments have changed. Online ministry has created a giant gap in the traditional passing of the plate. Attendees are actually at a disadvantage when they now watch online or interacting with your church anywhere online. App, social media, websites, email. The non-giver has less of a chance to become a giver when he engages with your church online. All right, we're going to talk about conversion rates, but it's not the ones we typically talk about in the church. Back to the simple view of a giving page. I think we all think if someone clicks on it, they give, but you would be surprised at how many people abandon the giving page. It just doesn't make sense to our minds, right? We think somebody clicked on giving, they're going to give. There is a lot of science in what creates that moment of giving, and it has not always been decided with a click. I have yet to walk into a church that knows their conversion rate on their webpage. I would say almost 99.9% of churches have no idea how many people are coming to their webpage and then clicking on the give button and then abandoning ship. It would surprise surprise you. And I guess it shouldn't. As you pass the plates around, not everybody puts money in it, even though it touches their hands. So now we can all agree that churches do not understand digital giving. There are pastors who have looked deeply into how to engage their flocks online, and they are seeing results that have lifted online giving significantly within their churches. So let's look at who else in the Christian kingdom is doing a good job at that. Nonprofits are experts at digital giving strategies. These parachurch ministries don't get a Sunday and a captive audience. They must be more strategic. And out of necessity, they've learned to harness the power of technology and online communication to draw in their donors. Quite frankly, it's an art. Organizations are sophisticated. They use A/B testing. Over time, they've learned how people give, why they give, and how to ask. It's a lot more complex than most people know. There's been a lot of fine-tuning along the way. Quick example of how this works. Email subject lines. Normally we just fill them out and hit enter. But not the web team for a faith-based organization. No, they're going to test it. They're going to test one subject line over the other subject line, send one email to their database, send another to another part of their database, and then whichever one does better, they'll send to the rest of the group. You think, why? Well, when you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, if one email performs at a 5% and the other one performs at 9%, these variations really add up to literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of a year. And just think about your donation page. What if you lay your donation page out one way versus another and it increases giving by 10 or 15, 20%? It's worth the time. Turning a one-time donor into a monthly donor, there's an art to it. But here's what I want you to hear. Even with increasing digital generosity, it's still not about the software. It's not about magic bullets and formulas. It's not about all the tactics that they learn. It's still all about people learning to communicate in a way people hear online. As good as churches are doing lately, the reality is nonprofit ministries are doing even better. Record giving. Nonprofits are experts at end-of-year campaigns, giving days like Giving Tuesday, campaign strategies, increasing their monthly givers. All the while, churches have a stale giving page. It's about as complex as churches get. Let's take a look inside how organizations think. We, in the church world, we think about members and visitors. But parachurch ministries, they look at donor pyramids. The tactic is to move someone into the pyramid where the lower donors are on the bottom and then there's less and less high donors at the top, which is why it looks like a pyramid, right? There are tactics to move people up the pyramid, specially worded emails, social media posts, web pages. They bring people into a conversation to give, and then once you're a giver, they move them up to being a higher giver, more involved giver, more involved into the ministry itself. I've done this for 25 years. I've been blessed to get into the internet early. A matter of fact, in the 1990s, we were doing sophisticated segmentation online. Our emails and web pages behaved differently depending on who the visitor was, based on what we knew about their needs, their wants, their propensities. The organization I worked with, and I believe the company Lands End, were the first two websites to personalize online experience. So when people visited the website, it looked differently based on who the person was. It was very cutting edge for the time. We worked on funnels and movement. We want to move people in, we want to move them up, but it was always about people. I had a big epiphany one day of how I should look at this. Instead of the systems and the pyramid, I started thinking about it from people and donor point of view. It changed everything for me. You may be sitting here thinking, well, Todd, giving really isn't donating. Giving to a church is out of obedience. Joyful giving is what it should look like. We would never look at our members like ministries look at donors. Well, you're right and wrong. There are so many things to learn and so many principles to apply to humans that are in our pews and that are in our church's online universe. Let me tell you a story about the shift I had. I was working for Insight for Living and sitting at my desk one day, and I had an employee walk up with that look, the uh-oh look. I knew something was not good just by the look on this man's face. I think he was scared he was going to be in big, big trouble because he had just made a big, big mistake. So in the world of ministry, your database and your donor pyramid, you speak to people differently based on where they are in the pyramid. Well, the top of the pyramid is sacred. It is where your high donors are, and maybe even your board members are up in that area. It is a part of the database you just don't talk to unless everything is perfect. Well, this gentleman accidentally sent an email to that group in Spanish. He was working on an international project at the same time he was working on an important email that went out to the high donors in our database, and he accidentally sent the wrong email to the wrong group. Well, I'll spare you the panic of the next 30 minutes, but at the end of the day, we wanted to send an email that apologized, and at the same time, we wanted to put the right emails in the right people's hands. Well, the feedback was absolutely amazing. It sped up my education of learning how important it is to see the donor the way he sees himself. The responses were so gracious. An email that group could not even read brought in so many donations. It had me scratching my head until I realized that it was never about the systems and the software and the emails and how you wrote it, but it was what was in people's heart and what made them want to help. It was eye-opening for me. It taught me more about humans than any Excel spreadsheet or any report could have. So you may be saying to yourself, people should give to their churches, then give sacrificially to other organizations. Well, let's look a little bit in the book of Acts with Paul. As Paul set up churches around the Mediterranean in the book of Acts, one of his mission trips, he actually was being a parachurch ministry, if you will. He was collecting money for the Jewish church who was going through a famine at the time. And he had asked people to give to that at the same time to support their local churches. Both are biblical. But let's be honest, sometimes parachurch ministries exist because the local church fails to provide ministry to those in need. And sometimes we fail because we can't fund it. But more on that in a moment. Many think that organizations are getting their donations from large donors, and it's just apples and oranges with churches. But I think you'd be surprised. The bottom of the pyramid is always the biggest part, and there are plenty of organizations that are doing well and doing amazing ministry with almost nobody at the top. It is the small people giving $25, $50, $100. I mean, that's even all they give all year long, but it really adds up. Thousands of ministries across the globe are experts at online giving strategies. I work with them every day. I help them tell their stories and fund their God-sized missions. They know how to talk to potential givers and join hands in funding and executing their missions. With no Sundays, no captive audiences, they are forced to get sophisticated. So we've learned churches don't understand digital giving. Parachurches ministries have become experts in it. And now let's look at the people component. Your pews are full of active givers. You have givers in your church. They may not give faithfully to their home church, but they do give to Passions. And honestly, they may even do it joyfully. They may give to Paul's food drive mission versus the laying of gifts at the apostles' feet of their home church. The numbers show that more believers give to parachurches, as we just learned. It's because they're much more complex than we are in the church. Now, let me tell you a quick story. I worked recently with a large church. It was right after COVID, and they sought me out to help them with this idea. What can the church learn from the nonprofit world of online giving? Well, I didn't want to confuse anything we did online with anything that was being said or done in the church. This was a digital project. So I asked a favor. I said, would you only give me people who have attended your church for months and years that have never given a dime? You know they attend regularly, but they just don't put in money when the plate goes by. And obviously, they don't do anything online. Well, using some basic principles I have learned by working, testing, understanding givers, especially online givers, we raised $15,000 in one email to people who had previously never given a dime to their own church. I'm sure you're thinking, it's not like they haven't heard it all before. Well, let me remind you what I mentioned a few slides back. Your flock spends way more time online than in your pews. They are getting communicated with in a much more sophisticated way than your church most likely does. I mixed online fundraising principles and combined it with church and pulled them into thinking about their churches differently. But really, I was training the church how to think about the people on their own websites and their email list differently. Frequently, when a church thinks about doing better with their online ministry or online generosity, the pastor, who's mostly a non-technical personality, let's be honest, is hoping for a white horse to ride in. Isn't our church getting a new app or some new software? Or aren't we hiring a new webmaster or getting a new website? Let me say it out loud. The website, app, church software, new staff member, smarter volunteer will not solve your issue. This is not the magic bullet of technology. This is about the person and the personality. It's the way we interact with your flock online. If we now realize that churches don't understand digital giving, and that nonprofits are the experts at giving strategies, and we know that your pews are actually full of givers, do you think we, the church, can improve how we offer an online giving opportunity to our members and visitors? And when we as churches improve, evidence shows every part increases. New givers, current givers, monthly givers. A rising tide raises all ships. So let me ask you a question. Is it okay with you to show you a training for you to learn how your church can engage with your flock online and increase generosity and teach your flocks about the joy of giving? I have taken the decades of experience with parachurches and churches and created a short online course, a masterclass, made especially for churches of all sizes. And you can have instant access to this masterclass. So what are you going to get with this training? 3 45-minute videos built to give your church all the details on learning to engage your flock online. This is the exact same content and methods I teach every one of my clients. And telling you its value, just for reference, that is near my monthly cost to work with large churches. Here's what we'll do in this. In lesson 1, we'll discuss conversion rate. Why waste valuable church time on the growing pains of A/B testing when you could just remove the landmines of giving moments and opportunities? Lesson 2, this is the meat of the course. Learn how to speak the language of an online giver. Turn your propensity givers into faithful church givers. This is the must-have lesson. And then lesson 3, we move from strategies to tactics. Your web team, volunteers, vendors will appreciate these practical enhancements that will move the needle to gain more online givers and help your flock engage online. I've added some important tools to this masterclass. Remember the A/B testing I mentioned? I've learned a lot, thousands of emails, social media campaigns, and posts. I have taken the best of the best and collected an easy-to-use, high-converting templates for your team to use as you grow in your knowledge of effective church communication. If I was going to charge for these resources, this would be over $6,000 to a typical church. Now, who has this worked for? Large megachurches. A large pastor, who many of you may know, came to me and wanted to learn from political organizations and parachurches. We worked to improve how the church spoke to the email addresses in their database. In just a few months, they engaged with attendees who had never given to the church or even responded to emails ever. You know, with midsize, sometimes it's not a pastor, it's a communication director who contacts me. After teaching these exact techniques, one lady, she was in charge of communication. She led her team to tweak their website, emails, and social media. And she literally thanks me every time I see her in person or in Zoom because it works. Even smaller churches who typically can't afford to bring me in on site, they meet me over Zoom. I see them frantically taking notes, drinking from the fire hose. But it was for this reason I decided to record this class as self-paced, that it can be bought once and watched by any church staff member, alone or together. I had two choices. My first option, just offer this information only to those who could afford it. That would limit the success to the haves, and I didn't want that. My second option was to record everything I know about online fundraising for churches in one value-packed online masterclass at a much lower price and make it available to every church who wants to expand ministry. Now, what are others saying? Well, I have 2+ decades working with churches and ministries. I have a long list of those who appreciate my conservative method of fundraising with integrity. I'm proud to use biblical methods that allow me and my clients to rest in peace at night as we tell our God-sized stories and encourage online generosity. After teaching on the importance of the giving page and conversion rates, I want to save some more time by adding another bonus item to this offer. The must-haves of a high-converting giving page. Not only see the page layout, but make sure your page has all the elements and content that donors need to see or feel. Give them confidence as they give. This giving moment opportunity needs to be improved by 99% of all the churches listening right now. Now, this course could easily be sold now for $7,500 to all churches. If any of these scenarios were true, would an investment like this be worth it? I believe everybody listening right now would say yes. An investment that can be a seismic shift in the lives and within the church, we would all make that investment. So what is increased giving worth? In the case of moving non-givers to becoming joyful givers, I'm not sure I even know the price. You can see why other larger churches are paying me $3,000 to $5,000 a month to teach them online strategies that increase generosity in their churches. It's already a great deal at $7,500, but your price, $875. Get started now. Here is how. CreativeDigitalGuide.com/generosity. And I'm going to throw in another additional bonus. When you sign up, you will join an online network of other churches taking the masterclass where you can share, learn, and encourage one another. It's easy to get started right now. CreativeDigitalGuide.com/generosity. Now you have two choices. Do nothing and don't take the leap of faith, which is actually 100% risk-free. And the second option is make a small investment into your church today. If it works, amazing. I'm confident it will. If not, just ask for your money back and you'll get it. I have a 30-day guarantee. Sign up, and if you don't like the course and you don't think it adds any value to your church for any reason, let me know. Notice my signature? My name means everything to me. If you do ask for your money back, which has never happened yet, I just want to know why, so I can give your money back and see what I could do to improve this course. I have full confidence this course will move the needle for churches and engage their flocks online. The real question is, if this class did half of what I claim, the $875 would pay for itself countless times over. So how to go from here? What do you do next? I want you to go to CreativeDigitalGuide.com/generosity. Just add the course to your cart, check out, and you'll have instant access to the content in this course, the videos, the bonus materials, and you'll be instantly invited to the online group of other churches taking this class. Just a reminder of what you're going to get. The 3-lesson masterclass, additional tools and templates, building out the perfect giving page, bonus content, and access to other churches taking the class at the same time. Everything aimed at improving not only new givers, but creating sacrificial givers and more monthly consistent givers. If you haven't signed up yet, here's what I hear back the most when I talk to churches. Well, my web team handles all these techie type things. Well, a lot of church decision makers are not technical, which is why we're here. Pastors are teaching to the flock who spend their days online. Church staffs are not prepared, trained, or focused on these tactics. I built this class to teach non-technical staff and those whose fingers are on the keyboard. Both kind of learners will learn from this masterclass. Some of the smaller churches say, well, we just don't have the time to implement anything you tell us. Well, I have worked for decades with short-staffed nonprofits. I navigate this phenomenon weekly. Some consultants are known for saying, well, just do this. And I think a lot of nonprofits and churches are just frustrated that they just feel like they can never do what they're told. Well, I'm more of a let's run the right strategies and solution that works for the culture and the resource of each organization. I promise each church will customize what I'm telling them and what they'll learn, and they're going to create solutions that work for that church. As you work to increase giving, you will be motivated to add more and more to your church communication channels. Move the needle at your pace. This is a lifetime access masterclass for all your church staff. You can always go back and listen as you grow. The third one is, well, I'm not sure your giving views really fit the culture of our church. This is why I showed you my client list. Each one of them are unique. And likely most theology topics we discuss, we may not agree on everything, every jot and tittle, but the principles I teach are biblical. I work hard to ensure that. As a matter of fact, I made theologians watch this, critique it, give feedback. I want to hear, well done, good and faithful servant. The last thing I want to be known for is a money changer in the temple. I think the fact that my clients rehire me and recommend me speaks volume to the way I teach biblical, ethical generosity methods. Sometimes we hear, well, we're doing well right now. We'll look at this later. Remember, even though this masterclass will raise all ships, new givers, current givers, future givers, the principle is to use parachurch methods to draw in givers. We want to aim at the non-giver or the non-committal giver and teach them the joy of giving. They're still not giving right now, no matter if your givers are giving more. So what are you going to get again? The 3-lesson masterclass, lesson 1 on online giving, lesson 2, learning about donors and givers, 3, practical playbooks your church can use, the social media, email templates, and the bonus content of the perfect giving page, plus online access to other churches taking the class. Get started now, only $875 today. Sleep well knowing that any decisions you make for your digital efforts moves the needle in measurable ways. Feel confident that your team isn't guessing for a magic best practice bullet, but are focusing on things that are proven. Move towards the best digital year ever versus the dreaded cutting ministry and staff. Get started today. CreativeDigitalGuide.com/generosity.